In today's video, we're going to determine if a podcast is right for you. Welcome to Espresso Podcast Production, the place where you will learn how to start, grow, and manage podcasts that will reach the right audience and monetize. My name is Haley Hayhurst, and I am the owner of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcast agency specializing in editing, marketing, and strategy. Podcasting is a very fast-growing industry with new podcasts popping up every single day. Over the past few months, I have seen another boom in the podcast world. And even though there are so many podcasts out there, reported by Blinko.com, there are 46.6 million podcast listeners worldwide. So there is definitely an audience for you if you are interested in starting a podcast. Now, podcast listenership has increased drastically from 2019, with only about 247.8 million listeners that year, compared to a projected 504.9 million listeners in 2024. So, is a podcast right for you? In this video, you'll learn important things to consider when you are inspired to start a podcast, but you're not sure if it's right for you. The first thing that you're going to want to think about is your purpose, your content, and your goals for your podcast. Now, this is exactly what I walk my one-on-one clients through, but I'm giving this to you for free. So be sure you hit that subscribe button so you get to learn all the podcast tips from me. So let's get into it. Purpose, content, and goals. First off, if you are thinking of having a podcast and want it to last for years to come, you are going to want to do some goal setting. Now, this is where you're going to want to think about where you want to be in the next month, the next 3 months, the next 6 months, and even the next year and beyond. Podcasting is not an overnight success type of situation. You're going to need to put in some work with it. And so that's why having these goals and milestones will keep you going and keep you inspired. When you're thinking about the goals, I also want you to think about the purpose of your podcast. Who is it meant to reach? What is it meant to do? Who is it meant to help? And ultimately, what content are you going to be creating that matches with your goals and your purpose? Think about your ideal listener and make sure you're creating the right content for them that will be sure to keep them inspired, keep them listening, and keep them coming back. And if you are starting your podcast for your business, which is predominantly who I help in this industry, you're going to want to think about how your podcast is going to connect directly with your business so you can get leads every single week with every single episode and really bring in income and new clients and new business to your business. More on that in a second. The next thing to consider is time and production that it will take to have a podcast. You might be recording 4 episodes a month, so about 4 hours of recording time, but then you're also going to have time editing, time doing research on your guests, time researching topics. You're going to need to do the entire post-production, and this can add up. So that 4 hours of recording can really turn into about 10 hours a month of just managing your podcast. So I highly encourage you to think about if you actually have the time for this, and it might make sense to outsource because your time is valuable. So it might make sense to hire a podcast manager like myself at Espresso Podcast Production or any other qualified manager. The editing part is a learning curve, but editing your podcast is crucial. So I just want to be very transparent with you that a podcast takes time, but that being said, it does give great results. The third thing to consider when you are thinking about starting a podcast, but you're not sure if it's right for you, is do you have a marketing plan in place for your podcast? Back to step number one, where I mentioned the goals, you will want to be marketing your podcast to reach those goals. If your goal is to get new clients every single month, you can do that, but you need to be sure that you're marketing your podcast. There are tons of podcasts out there, so you need to make sure yours stands out with your marketing efforts. And also making sure that you are able to maximize your efforts in the podcast industry. Because if you're recording episodes and no one is listening, it may feel like a waste of time to you. So make sure that you have the time to market. I will be doing more podcast marketing trainings on this YouTube channel, so make sure that you come back for more on that. Podcasting takes time and dedication and patience. And the truth is, it's not for everyone. But if you're feeling inspired to start your podcast, I highly encourage you to do so. The payoff is amazing. The way you're able to connect with a new audience is amazing. It is worth the time and effort if you are willing to put it in. This should not deter you from starting a podcast if you are interested in doing so. I can personally say that because I have been doing my podcast for over 2 years now and have been in the podcast industry for over 5. And I have seen so many podcasts come and go, but the ones that are dedicated and patient with the progress are the ones that see results. I've been able to be introduced to new opportunities and meet countless people that I would have never met without a podcast. Thank you for watching this training episode. Be sure you subscribe and come back next week for another training on how to start, scale, and manage a podcast that will reach the right audience and monetize.